What is going on, everyone? Tim from Tierphone Orbital. So today I would like to talk about a install commission that I completed on a Roman Props steel V2. This one is a little bit special in that it has a crystal reveal that was machined by my buddy Jeremy over at Solo Sabers. So I want to talk about that a little bit, and I also want to come into Fusion and talk a little bit about the chassis. It is a very, very small chassis. If anyone has done any of these versions of Luke's hilt with a crystal reveal up top, you know that you only have a limited amount of space in the pommel section. So this is a relatively small chassis. So I do want to talk about that in Fusion, and then of course we will come up top, talk about how to use it, and then we will put a blade in it, and then we will be on our way. All right, so let's come into Fusion and talk about this chassis. Okay, so here it is. This is the chassis for this particular build. This is for the Roman Props Steel V2. Similar chassis. I do a similar chassis for the Mark II from Roman Props. The internal diameter of that pommel is a little bit different, but it is relatively the same concept, right? Very, very small chassis. The Proffie board does tuck up underneath the cage of the hilt itself. It kind of, the USB and SD card peak just up underneath the threads for this, right? It is an 18350 battery build, right? So very, very small, right? Not a lot of room for greebly work either. In fact, there's not a lot of room for wire management either. I don't often, in fact, I almost never do this. This is the only, come to think of it, this is the only exception I've ever made where you see an exposed wire in my battery tray. I always try to hide the battery leads, the wires for my battery leads in my battery tray. But because this is such a thin chassis, the negative lead just kind of sits underneath the battery in this one, right? But that's it. Very, very simple. No room for a kill switch in this one. Just a very, very simple battery holder and Proffie holder, really, right? So you are the kill switch when you put the battery in this. So just some light greebly work on each side. I did put my logo up here. You'll never see this. This is kind of redundant to put this up here, but I did put it up there, and that is it. The entire chassis is E6000 in place once it is all wired up, and that is it. Another thing that I create for this particular build, as well as the Mark IIs, is a switch holder. This just sits in between the Graflex clamp card, or the clamp. It holds two very small rectangular tactile switches. Depending on the build, I will put two springs in here as well to help hold the clamp card in place. If it is a bubble strip, I've found that the springs just kind of get caught in those holes of the bubble strip, right? So I don't typically use springs in those builds, but with clamp cards, it does kind of help hold the clamp card. It keeps a little bit of pressure on that clamp card to help hold it in place. But that's it, right? Just a nice, simple switch holder, rather. And that is it. Relatively simple chassis for this one. So let's come up top. Okay, all right, so here it is. This is the Roman Props V2. This is all in steel. In fact, when I did receive this, there was a little bit of rust on the inside. So one thing to keep in mind to the customer, hilts that are steel, you want to take care of them, right? So I think I've mentioned this in a previous video. A good way to do that is to treat it with Renaissance wax or something like that, right? You want to seal it, otherwise it will rust. I am not sure that Roman Props does treat the outside of these. I know that they don't treat the inside. The inside of this did have some rust, right? There is some rust on the outside of the emitter, and that's fine. I mean, that is something that I like. I like that about steel. It just naturally ages like that. I do think that you need to keep in mind that this has been stenciled, so I don't know if Renaissance wax will affect this stenciling, but that's something that you need to keep in mind, right? But yeah, other than that, beautiful, beautiful hilt. I actually have one of these in my collection. I love this hilt. Very, very Beautiful specimen. So let's talk about how to use this first, okay? So to get at your chassis, you want to unthread the pommel here. So here is the chassis. Very, very simple chassis. Right, so here's your battery tray. Proffie board does sit just underneath those threads, so you can get at your USB port if need be when you want to like upload a new config, and you can also pull out your USB card if your SD card. I can't talk this morning. I haven't had my coffee yet. You can pull out your SD card if you need to. You just need to use a pair of tweezers, right? Because my fingers are not small enough to get in there. So you can yank your SD card out with a pair of tweezers when you want to add new fonts to this, okay? But that's it. Just a very, very small, short chassis, okay? So let me get a battery. So I sized this chassis for a very particular 18350. This is a flat top Keep Power 18350, not a button top. A button top will be very, very tight in this chassis. This is a flat top protected 18350 battery. Spring side is your negative, so you want to put your battery in that battery tray. Okay. Once you get your battery in, you can put your pommel back in place. Now let's get a look at this crystal chamber that my boy Jeremy from Solo Sabers did. Very, very intricately machined crystal chamber. I hope this is in frame. So it has been really cool watching Jeremy hone his craft on his new lathe. So this is really, really nicely done. So I actually have one as well from Jeremy. So it's been cool to watch him progress in his craft on that lathe. So this has some brass as well as aluminum, and there is a real quartz point in here that is lit with one single neopixel from below. Okay, and that is its own blade in the config. Whoops.
Father's lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight.
So this bottom button is your aux. The top will be your main. Okay. Yeah, so it's just awesome seeing that amount of detail in exposed, not exposed, in a crystal chamber, right? Very, very unique. So I also have a 3-rail PCB up here. This is from Shtok. This is what makes a connection to the upper part of the hilt. That is how our upper PCB works. Okay, so once you get your battery in, you can thread the upper part of the grip on, or the upper part of the hilt rather, till it stops. Tighten your clamp and you're ready to go. All right, so that's it. Let's come down to the bottom. All right, so there it is. Roman Props, steel V2. Whoops. Great hilt. I always love a steel hilt because it feels substantial in your hand. It feels like a weapon, you know. Let's get another look at that crystal chamber in there from Mr. Jeremy at Solo Sabers. Beautiful, detailed crystal chamber that was machined by hand. Well, I mean, it was machined on a lathe, right? Very intricately done with a quartz crystal in there. I love that. Really love that. Whoops. So, let's put a blade in it. So this hilt takes a recessed blade. I do have a recessed blade here. It is a full-length blade. This blade was also made by by Jeremy, a man of many talents. Jeremy is. So I believe you will be getting a blade from Jeremy as well. So I will be sending this hilt back to Jeremy so he can size a blade for this. But I will be doing. We'll put a blade in it and do a quick demo, right? So there is a set screw here for blade retention. So just kind of put your blade down in there so it's touching those PCB pins. Tighten that set screw and you are good to go. Let me try not to hit anything here and you are good to go. It's been a while since I've swung a full-length blade in here. Let me get back to Luke's.
Don't talk back to your elders, child. What is it?
Yeah, I'm not going to swing it around too much in here. Whoops. Yeah, it got loose. Blade came loose a little bit here.
Don't talk back to your elders, child.
One more.
I've been trained in your Jedi arts by Count
Jeez. All right, so that is it. That is the Roman Props V2 steel with a Solo Jeremy from Solo Sabers custom crystal reveal. This is a beautiful hilt, beautiful prop replica, in my opinion. So this would be a fantastic addition to anyone's collection. To the customer, thank you for trusting me with your install. If anyone has any questions about this particular build or anything really, please do not be a stranger. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Thanks for watching, everybody.